8 serial killers, countless victims. Today we uncover the darkest minds in history. Ready? Let's dive in. Let's start with a mystery that has baffled investigators for over 50 years, the Zodiac Killer. Active in Northern California during the late 1960s and early 1970s, the Zodiac didn't just kill. He terrorized an entire region with his brazen crimes and chilling mind games. He claimed 37 murders, though only 5 have been confirmed. His victims were often young couples, attacked in secluded areas. But what set him apart was his obsession with taunting authorities. He sent cryptic letters to newspapers, filled with coded messages and threats like, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." Some of his ciphers remain unsolved to this day, and his crosshair-like symbol became his chilling calling card. Despite one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history, the Zodiac was never caught. Suspects like Arthur Lee Allen were investigated, but no conclusive evidence was found. The Zodiac Killer isn't just a murderer, he's a ghost, a shadow that still haunts us. Next up, the man known as the Handsome Devil, Theodore Robert Bundy, or simply Ted Bundy. Born on November 24, 1946, Bundy was the kind of person you'd never suspect. Handsome, charismatic, and smart. But behind that charming appearance was one of the most dangerous serial killers in U.S. history. In the 1970s, he confessed to killing at least 30 young women, though some estimates suggest the number could be as high as 100. His signature method? He'd pretend to be injured, like wearing a cast, to gain sympathy and lure his victims into his Volkswagen Beetle. Once he had them, he'd kidnap, torture, and murder them. What made Bundy even more terrifying was his habit of returning to the crime scenes to spend time with the corpses, even applying makeup to their lifeless faces. He was a master manipulator, escaping prison twice and defending himself in court with eerie confidence. Before his execution in the electric chair on January 24, 1989, Bundy gave chilling interviews, blaming pornography for his actions. But let's be clear, Ted Bundy wasn't just a killer. He was a predator who thrived on control, manipulation, and fear. Now let's talk about one of the most horrifying figures in criminal history, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. Born on May 21, 1960, Dahmer's crimes are so disturbing that they still shock the world today. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 young men and boys, but what sets him apart is the sheer brutality of his actions. He didn't just kill, he experimented on his victims. He would drill holes into their skulls and pour in boiling water or acid, trying to create zombies who would obey him. Dahmer kept body parts in his fridge, preserved skulls as trophies, and even practiced cannibalism. His apartment was a house of horrors, filled with the remains of his victims. When police finally raided his home, they found photos of dismembered bodies and a human head in the freezer. In 1994, Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate in prison. But his legacy of terror lives on as a reminder of the darkest corners of human psychology. Next, we have a man who lived a shocking double life, John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown. Born on March 17, 1942, Gacy was a well-liked figure in his Illinois community. He ran a successful construction business, volunteered for local charities, and even dressed up as Pogo the Clown to entertain children at parties. But behind the cheerful clown mask was a monster. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy murdered 33 young men and boys, most of them teenagers. He lured his victims to his home with promises of jobs or money, then assaulted, tortured, and killed them. Many of the bodies were buried in the crawl space under his house, while others were dumped in nearby rivers. When police finally searched his home in 1978, they discovered 29 bodies hidden beneath the floorboards. The sheer number of victims and the way Gacy hid his crimes in plain sight shocked the nation. Gacy was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. But his legacy as the Killer Clown remains a haunting reminder of how evil can hide behind a friendly smile. Now let's talk about one of the most infamous and tragic figures in criminal history, Aileen Wuornos. Born on February 29, 1956, Wuornos' life was marked by hardship from the very beginning. Abandoned by her parents as a child, she was raised by her grandparents, but her home life was far from stable. By the age of 13, she was living in the woods, trading sex for food and shelter. Wuornos turned to sex work to survive, but her life took a dark turn in the late 1980s. Between 1989 and 1990, she killed 7 men in Florida, all of whom she claimed had raped or tried to assault her. She insisted her actions were in self-defense, but the brutality of her crimes, shooting her victims execution style and leaving their bodies by the roadside, suggested a deeper, more complex rage. Wuornos became known as America's first female serial killer, and her case sparked intense debates about trauma, mental illness, and the death penalty. During her trial, she was portrayed as both a victim of her circumstances and a cold-blooded killer. On October 9, 2002, Wuornos was executed by lethal injection. Her life and crimes were later brought to the big screen in the Oscar-winning film Monster, with Charlize Theron delivering a haunting portrayal of her. Wuornos' story is a grim reminder of how abuse and neglect can shape a person's life, and how darkness can sometimes emerge from the deepest pain. Next, we have a man who turned murder into a business, Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H.H.Holmes. Born on May 16, 1861, Holmes is often called America's first serial killer. But what makes him truly terrifying is the way he planned his crimes with cold, calculated precision. During the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, Holmes built a 3-story building that became known as the Murder Castle. This wasn't just a hotel, it was a death trap. The building had secret passages, soundproof rooms, trapdoors, and even a gas chamber. Holmes used the hotel to lure in victims, mostly young women, and then killed them in horrifying ways. He confessed to 27 murders, though some believe the number could be much higher. Holmes would dissect his victims, sell their skeletons to medical schools, and even experiment with their bodies. Holmes was eventually caught and hanged on May 7, 1896. But his murder castle remains a symbol of pure evil, a place where horror was carefully designed and executed. Now, let's travel to Russia to talk about one of the most brutal serial killers in history, Andrei Chikatilo, also known as the Rostov Ripper or the Butcher of Rostov. Born on October 16, 1936, Chikatilo's crimes are some of the most horrifying ever recorded. Between 1978 and 1990, Chikatilo murdered 52 women and children, though some estimates suggest the number could be higher. His victims were often young, vulnerable, and alone. Chikatilo would lure them to secluded areas, where he would assault, mutilate, and kill them in acts of extreme violence. What makes Chikatilo even more disturbing is his motivation. He claimed he was driven by a twisted sense of rage and frustration, often targeting those he saw as impure. His crimes went unsolved for years, partly due to Soviet bureaucracy and the misidentification of suspects. Chikatilo was finally caught in 1990 and confessed to his crimes. He was executed by a single gunshot to the head on February 14, 1994. His case remains one of the darkest chapters in Russian criminal history. Finally, we have a killer who turned nightmares into reality. Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker. Born on February 29, 1960, Ramirez terrorized California in the mid-1980s, leaving a trail of fear and violence in his wake. Ramirez didn't have a specific type of victim. He targeted men, women, and even children. He broke into homes at night, often through unlocked windows, and attacked his victims with brutal force. He killed 13 people and assaulted many more, leaving satanic symbols at crime scenes to taunt police and the public. What made Ramirez even more terrifying was his unpredictability. He had no pattern, no specific method, and no remorse. His reign of terror lasted for over a year, and his ability to evade capture made him a living nightmare for Californians. Ramirez was finally caught in 1985 after a massive manhunt. His trial became a media circus, with Ramirez shouting "Hail Satan" in court and flashing pentagrams drawn on his palms. He was sentenced to death but died of natural causes in prison on June 7, 2013. Richard Ramirez wasn't just a killer. He was a symbol of pure, chaotic evil. That's 8 of history's most dangerous serial killers. Who shocked you the most? Let me know below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Stay curious and stay safe.